Hello, everyone. It's showtime. That's what my platform says, showtime. So, welcome to Quantum Nurse Freedom International live stream, where we will explore the intersections of health, wellness, and innovation. Today, we're diving into a critical and often misunderstood topic: nutritional supplements. And joining us is an esteemed guest, the CEO of PRL, a leader in the nutraceutical industry, to shed light on the science, safety, and challenges of supplements. So, with so many products on the market and varying claims, it can be overwhelming to know what's truly effective and safe for your health. And so, in this episode, we will discuss how to navigate the supplement industry with confidence, debunk common myths, and understand the importance of research backed products. Whether you're a seasoned supplement user, a practitioner, or just starting your health journey, this conversation promises to provide clarity and actionable insights. So, if this episode resonates to you, please remember to share, like, and follow our guest and other people who I always present to you for incredible, truthful information. So, welcome, Nick.
Well, thank you, Grace. It's great to be here. Appreciate you having me on.
So, Nickolas Labinsky is the CEO of Premier Research Lab. He is a transformative leader driven by uncompromising commitment to quality, precision, and purpose. He has a background with microbiology and expertise in lean driven quality systems. Labinsky has redefined industry standards for nutritional supplements because under his leadership, and I can vouch for it because we have talked with Nick for a long time, related with him for many times, and also checked the main headquarters of Premier Research Laboratory. He said that PRL became a beacon of integrity where every product is meticulously tested for purity, safety, and efficacy. His approach goes beyond industry norms, ensuring that every step from raw material sourcing to final delivery meets the highest possible standard. Labinsky's leadership isn't just about following the protocols, it is about setting a new benchmark for what excellence should look like in an industry that impacts health and well being on a global scale.
Hmm.
And I know what protocol means because many times, whether it's in the health industry where I used to work for 20 years in ICU, we got protocols and it's helpful. But if we just follow protocol without considering individual or tailoring it to my patient or to our client, that's not a very good protocol.
Yeah.
Okay, so there has to be, and PRL has done that, and through Nick Labinsky's leadership. So he's more than really a innovator and an educator. So he always offers insights into the unseen world of supplement analysis. And so I'm so excited and happy that he found his time in his busy days, really taking care of Premier Research Lab, that he's here. So his approach is both measured and profound, encouraging others to think, oh, I don't like this echo. Anyway, I can hear my echo. But anyway, maybe I should stop talking and just let Nick Levinsky lead us to the conversation because that
Yeah.
echo is not very good. Okay, so welcome again, Nick. His influence is really felt in his presence whenever I have a conversation with him in person or on the phone. So, Nick, welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Grace, for that amazing introduction. And like I said, I'm very blessed to be here today. I've known Grace and George for a very long time, and appreciate how y'all are trying to change the world. And however I personally can support you as well as PRL, we are there for you because that's what we do. We change people's lives for the better. And my whole family has been changed by this company through nutrition. And for people that don't know, Premier Research Labs began like over 35 years ago because Dr. Robert Marshall, was poisoned by GMO tryptophan back in the 80s. And this was an incident, that quality incident, that literally almost took the whole industry down. And basically what happened was they produced a tryptophan amino acid, and they had put it into the supply chain, but they didn't realize when they processed this using a GMO organism that it caused a dimer of tryptophan, which is actually toxic to the human body. Very, very small amounts cause a condition called eosinophilia. And this actually killed hundreds of people. Thousands of people were um, basically disabled. And he was a clinical nutritionist at the time. He had met the co-founder, Dr. Linda Forbes, and she was a doctor of Oriental medicine. She was a chiropractor, and really kind of the synergy and marriage between the two saved his life with a little bit of divine intervention. And the lawsuit started this company. And, quality was always number one. Quality without compromise has been at the forefront of this company and built into our DNA, period. And I was blessed 16 years ago to start here as a microbiologist coming out of UT, believe it or not. So my first job outside of the hospitality industry, because I was bartending, waiting tables to put myself through school, got into here. And I was waiting to go to med school, and I realized that was my parents' dream and not really my dream. And I fell in love with this industry and the laboratory itself, where I got my degree in. And really, my journey in quality has been under, the mentorship of Dr. Marshall, sending me around the world, building a quality system that literally less than 1% of the industry is doing what we do. And it's not us telling this. This is actually auditors from the third-party organizations that we use to qualify us to make sure we're meeting, 21 CFR 111. That they're saying that people are not doing what we do. And that's from our processes, but that's also from the testing. And today I'm going to actually show you all a presentation a little bit about this industry, what's driving this industry, and how that's affecting quality, and what we've seen from case studies over the years, because I've seen a lot. There's a whole range from the clandestine adulteration, literally putting drugs into products, to economic adulteration, where they're trying to make just more money at the expense of the health of the public. And this, unfortunately, the industry where we see most of the contamination is, I have to say, as close as to. That being said, my journey was from quality to product development, then operate. I was CEO last 7 years, and then I became CEO this last March. And unfortunately, we lost a great man in 2017. Dr. Marshall passed away. But I carry that torch of quality without compromise, really a flag. It's not even a torch. I have that just in the wind, running with it as fast as I can. Because what we do here, like Grace beautifully said, we innovate quality. We do things people are not doing. Why? And a lot of people want to avoid it. It's Pandora's box. A lot of times what we do, we open it up to find out what it is, to make a better product. And sometimes it's not good what you find. And then, that leads to a recall or whatever. And then we improve the process, right? We want to make sure we give you the purest product, because really, if you want to experience another level of health you've never experienced before, you need clean product. And there's a lot of contamination, as y'all probably well know, from everything from microplastics to toxins. And like I said, I'll be going over a lot of this today. And I have a whole presentation. So let me get into that presentation. Grace, any questions on that?
No, I think we'll wait for your presentation. But
Okay.
and while you're preparing your presentation, or I can see it and I can help you put it on the screen. But so it's all at the bottom, right? You can see that. Yeah.
Yes, I
Okay.
will upload
Right.
that. One
Yeah,
second.
and just so while we're waiting, I want to just do a testimonial for myself and for PRL. But definitely, when you want to be healthy, it takes your personal effort to do that. Okay, so when I continue to take care of myself, then I found PRL. Then that's really a significant pivot of my health life, especially when it comes to digestion issues. So barely do I go into that situation where my digestive issue is bothering me, and that really kept me going. So and we all have our journey to take care of. We all have our preferences, but if it doesn't, whatever you're doing, if it doesn't reflect on your own health as of now, then maybe it's high time that you can think what maybe should be we should do, right? Okay. Nick,
May
I
I
don't
have
I
I have
don't
a
see you
question
there. Well,
directly, Grace. I have
Yep.
a question directly, and it's about the laws, because in Europe we have the problem that the quantity.
oh, sorry. Now that's what happens too. Wi-Fi, internet is always a challenge, but for sure, Hartmut will come back. But he was about to ask about the laws in every country, I guess. So, but here he is. He's back.
Sorry, I was interrupted. Yeah, my question is the following: in Europe, we have the problem that the quantity for the vitamins and the supplements are very restricted, and the quantity which is allowed to use in the supplements is reduced permanently. So that some people got already the idea that that they make supplements for elephants, for tigers, for anything else, but not for human beings anymore. Which is a let's say a question of legal aspects. What's the situation in the US with respect to this kind of reduction of the supplements quantity, so that the people are not able to get the nutrition they need because by law the quantity is reduced so low?
So just to repeat the question to make sure I understand, in Europe they're reducing basically the European committees are reducing the dosaging to such a low level that it's really not having that clinical effect anymore. We've seen, over here for supplements at least, it's definitely not regulated the same, and every country is different, very different for, in Europe and UK compared to other countries like Germany. And what we've seen in the US is that there's been a complete, either it's all or none. They basically, there's upper limits for vitamins and minerals, but for many of the compounds that come out of there, the innovation for phytochemicals that are brought out, they're either just saying that you can't use it, like nicotinamide mononucleotide, and they say it's illegal because of a drug pre-exclusion, because all of a sudden they may see that it has a clinical effect to it, and the drug companies, and this is a big problem because there is no list of, hey, these are not allowed. It just all of a sudden pops up on the radar and says, oh, well, we've already done a study on that and you can't use it. So they really don't lower the levels. We don't have that problem over here, but I see that, we've had to create lower levels of like D3 for other countries because that's not even allowed across the border, which, practitioners are having to double dosaging, and they're doing whatever they need to do. But for me, even to get it into the country of pure materials, that's, we're having to work with those customs, right? Because it's different at every border. But we don't necessarily see that problem over here. What we see is complete, basically banning of stuff. They're trying to, it's like, it's all or nothing. There is no lower level. It is more of, you're not even allowed to use this. And so it's a little bit of a different extreme. I honestly wish they would allow some things at different levels for the practitioner to use at their own dosage as they recommend. But that is not something that we necessarily see as much over here, reducing the dosaging that I've seen. In New York, just recently, they banned, of course, weight loss and health products for people under 18, which, understanding the logic behind it, totally get it. But the implementation, I think they were, they ran before they walked, and they're really, to enforce that is a very difficult item. And as Grace and George knows, that it's hard to do, especially in New York City, to get validation there. But we don't see that as much there. But I know that's a big problem with a lot of the world, different countries. So, and I know in Germany they have certain other regulations for certain items.
Yeah, even Nick, Nick, not to interrupt you, but thank you for mentioning Dr. Marshall, because he's so dear to our heart. You know, all of us that have known him brought so much to the industry. So thank you for that. But you know, when it comes to dosages, what I find is that the levels that they recommend are sometimes way below what really gives benefits to humans, right? And like vitamin D, they talk about 400 IUs a day, but if you start looking at the research, that's way below what we really need. And if you go back a century ago, dosages were much higher and people were much healthier. You know, so it's interesting. You know, even recommendations, what the dosage is on your part, it's a little bit hard to do. You know, when you recommend on a bottle how many pills you take, because it depends on a person, right? Depends on their weight, depends on their size, many different things. Yeah.
And you know, Doctor, when we created these supplements, a lot of them were set at low dosaging for us, so that practitioner could titrate up for the needs of the body using, you know, quantum reflex analysis to find out what exactly dosage you need, or whatever, you know, whatever is necessary for that individual on a personalized level, right? Just like Grace said, everybody needs something. Everybody needs a personalized. Protocols are dependent on the person. So we enabled our line to be protocol friendly, if you will. So you can actually titrate up, because it's very hard to go back the other way once you have too much in a capsule or even in a concentrate in a liquid. So we try to be as versatile because of the needs of each individual patient or consumer. Can you all see my presentation? I want to make sure. It took me a while to get this up, and I apologize. Yes, perfect. Okay. So this is I wanted to, you know, trust, purity, and harmony is kind of what we do here at PRL. This is an image we created just to kind of embody that. And, you know, I wanted to go through and really start, honestly, by describing the industry, because when I describe the industry and show the trends of the industry, it will connect to safety, quality, efficacy, and why things are happening. And it's all, unfortunately, a lot of it all comes down to money, but it's also the health of our nation and the world. And so, as you can see here, this is the supplement industry. This is from MBJ Journal in 2023. The supplement industry has been growing year over year, consistent growth. We had this huge spike, which, you know, right over here, that was during that, you know, we had the pandemic during that time. And during that moment, we grew almost 14% as an industry. On average, it's been about 6% per year. Of course, this was the correction after the huge growth. But we continue to climb every year. And you could see just kind of give a little outline of the differences of the different categories with vitamins, specialty. Even though herbs and botanicals used to be the largest part of or second largest of the industry, that was now recently exceeded by specialty. And specialty includes like items like CoQ10, melatonin, items like that. And then there's sports nutrition, meal replacements, and minerals. Now, knowing that it grows over time, here's kind of a little snapshot of, you know, what we see. And this year alone, we're looking to hit almost $67.5 billion. And also know that that's a lot of products, you know, and there's they say over 100,000 brands at minimum here just in the US. And many times this is an industry run by contract manufacturers, right? This is many individuals that don't have a manufacturing plant. They buy from another company that produce maybe 100 brands, thousands of brands. And so if there's a quality issue at one contract manufacturer, it could affect many parts of the industry. But realize that this is an industry that continues to grow, because especially was kind of accelerated in 2020 due to awareness more of especially botanicals and how they can help you, whole food nutrition, but a need to look outside of the traditional healthcare systems. And we're just seeing growth year over year. So where is all this demand coming from other than just awareness? You know, I want to kind of highlight something that I presented not too long ago at our Quantum Summit. Our industry, or our nation, probably the world, are really stressed, and we are a stressed nation. Period. And this is compounded by sleep, lack of sleep, and you can see here, almost if you take the less than 5%, less than almost like 59% of individuals are sleeping less than 6 hours a night. This, leads to other issues, not only metabolic issues, but leads to having a more stressful, higher cortisol levels. It's just, sleep is critical for health. And what's compounding all that is all these other stressors that are there. And this is stuff such as, financial, this is a big issue here in the United States, in the world, period. Family health. This is, of the respondents, over 50% are indicating some kind of stress. And then you take the lack of sleep, and all these things start compounding together. So there's a drive for different health solutions that really, these two things are kind of at the foundational aspects of everything else: brain health, metabolic health, all these issues. And this is kind of what's really, I feel, at the core of what's driving, and people are looking for solutions. And I bring up biohacking and why. I think it's a term that's been applied and really kind of it's more familiar with the millennial generation, according to this graph. But they're looking for solutions. And if you look at what's at the top of here for biohacking to solve these issues, they're using dietary supplements. So dietary supplements, diet modification, sleep improvement hacks, and sleep's always in the top three. And you can see all the other things that people are trying to explore to find a solution to their problems. Why I don't have any energy, could be from their sleep. Let me take a B12. Let me take a CoQ10. I heard this person on TikTok saying this. They're trying to find solutions. And the very interesting thing about all this is that, and this is, why they're doing this, for general health, improved sleep, longevity, and health, and healthy aging, and making sure, especially as the baby boomers continue to age, get older, they're looking for that longevity to be as healthy as they can as they get into years where there tends to be more problems. And then once again, vitamins is always at the top. That's the first thing people are looking for as a solution in a bottle. A lot of times can't be just that, but that's something they're looking for. The vitamin part of the dietary supplement industry is the largest part compared to every other one, probiotics and everything else. Magnesium is growing exponentially, but still vitamins leads the charge, period. And, the really interesting thing, if you look at the industry as a whole, practitioners and e-commerce have continued to grow in terms of within the industry of the largest channels with the growth. Why? People are going back from biohacking and asking their practitioners or searching the web, like it says here, friends and family, to find answers. How do I fix this? Why can I not get up? Why do I keep waking up in the night? Because maybe the cortisol levels are too high. Or what do I need to do to find that solution? And that's why healthy aging has become such a part of the mainstream almost now, whereas something that was kind of just, healthy aging wasn't even a category so many years ago that was recognized. So this is something that, understanding this as a basis of this industry, and when there is a drive for, when there's a lot of money involved, you have adulteration and contamination happening. Whenever there's a trend, like there was that whole, there still is, about metabolic health and berberine as the new natural Ozempic, which it's not, but people were saying that. And people were, one of the reasons PRL hasn't even had a berberine just yet, we're trying to have one, is because we couldn't find anything that was not contaminated, that was actually berberine. Like many of the samples that we got in, and have to recognize that over 75% of the samples that we get around the world is contaminated in some way. But this particular category, because it was so in demand, this is when you get the adulteration and people looking for that economic adulteration, meaning they're either diluting it. So it's supposed to be a pure compound and really it's like 50%, sometimes zero, or it's something completely else. It's not even berberine. And we see this, why is honey and olive oil one of the most contaminated items known? Because we consume more than we produce in the world. So what do? They cut it. And this is something I always talk about the food industry. People are out there looking at taking advantage of the public and thinking they're not harming them when, at the end of the day, you're putting stuff in there, what they're cutting it with sometimes can be something inert, like a calcium oxalate or something of that nature. But you're not getting, first of all, you're getting something on there that you're not paying for or even knowing of. Or they're putting in there, like I said before, clandestine adulteration, where they're putting literally drugs like Viagra, Cialis, and sexual health. So there's extremes here. But at the end of the day, both of them are legal and shouldn't happen. But there's a drive to find solutions because the world is not getting healthier per se. We're still having problems, and especially the United States. And want to highlight, the importance of quality. For us in 2024, we had 11 failures, and this is failures from qualified vendors. So our process is that we source from around the world. We get materials in, we take samples of, and we usually do an array of tests on that sample. A lot of times we have to do it on the sample alone, just because the testing that we do, like aflatoxin, nobody's doing that in every botanical. We do it actually in every botanical and every single extract we get in. And I'll show you some slides later of what we've seen and why I do that. But because I do testing that the vendor doesn't do, and they said if it fails, they won't accept it back. So we have to do this pre-ship sample to mitigate risk. But at the end of the day, even if that sample may not be representative of the whole batch that I get in, I have to take a risk, and we're doing this. Sometimes we just had a material come in, a Halorina bark that's very good for parasitic cleansing. It failed, and we have direct evidence it failed, but the vendor will not accept it back. And we're stuck holding the bag. And this is something we'll not work with that vendor again. But this is a common issue that we see because we're doing testing that they don't do. And their excuse is, well, we didn't know. Well, at the end of the day, especially if there's toxins, this is a problem. But they'd rather just not accept it back. Maybe not to be on the records. But, and there's people, like I said, this industry is growing. There's a reliance on supplements, meaning that people are looking to supplements even to help keep them healthy so they don't have to have more intervention or have to go to more of an acute phase of whatever they're dealing with. So they're turning to having, D3 or, many of these items. And it continues because this industry, there's awareness happening. People are looking for solutions outside of, the traditional Western medicine, thought. And and like I said, all this, which whenever there's a lot of money involved, when there's a lot of demand involved, leads to poorly manufactured items. Because all it takes really one contract manufacturer. We are our own manufacturer, so we're really blessed to be able to do this ourselves. But like I said, many brands out there, they don't actually have a manufacturing facility themselves. They just contract it to one, which that company, if they have a quality issue, can literally have, if they have one recall, can affect like 1,000 brands at one time. So this is something that, is a problem. It's a big issue, and people need to have, and we have to do a lot of self-regulation. And one of the things I'll call out later is that, this is a $67 billion industry, and the FDA is only so big. They can only do, I think they did 1,000 audits, doubling what they used to do. But there's still hundreds of thousands of brands. And even if you don't manufacture, you need to follow the proper protocols, require the right, specifications. Because even if you contract out your manufacturing and have somebody else do the quality, at the end of the day, if it's your brand, it's your label, you own it, and the FDA will come to you. So I think there's 100,000 different brands, and there's only like maybe, let's say, 100 different auditors or so doing all the auditing across the nation. It's just too large. They don't have the funding to get there. And I'm going to show you what has happened recently. That it's kind of scary that we went back to this other model of how the organization's been set up. So something to note in terms of this year. So, there's a drive for this industry. I'm going to give you kind of a little bit of history of this year to kind of catch you up. Duché happened in October of 1994. Now that was the law, and then the GMPs happened between 2008 and 2000, basically almost 11, in that time frame to be implemented completely, depending on the size of the company. And there's been the law hasn't changed, but the interpretation of law has been, with every warning letter, things been moving and changing, with a big focus on people that just private label. And when I say private label, they're taking something they don't manufacture, somebody else's product, and putting their label on it. That's what it's called. It's called own label distributor. And so, but this year, in terms of the regulatory landscape, we saw everything from adulteration with a certain root supplement that had a yellow oleander, which was poisonous in the supply chain. Why does that happen? Well, their proper identification techniques were not done. So at PRL, for botanicals, we do something called orthogonal testing. And orthogonal testing means that we take a botanical and we actually test it multiple times by different tests to answer just the one endpoint of identity. And why do I do that? Because every test has an advantage and a disadvantage. And I'll describe it later when I show you the actual case studies of the advantages and disadvantages of what we found. But we combine all these tests to make sure we see a complete view of the product, because if you just did one, and the regulation actually says at least one, and a lot of people think it means only one. So they said at least one because they knew that you can't see everything with one test, but you have to make sure that the product is identified, that the identity, purity, strength, and composition, and lack of contaminants are the criteria you must answer for every single quality point in your process. And if you can't answer that, then technically it's adulterated. So this is a problem. People try to do the minimum, right? People want especially I showed you the financial stress. So there's a drive to have a cheaper product out there. But I'm going to tell you right now, you get what you pay for, as you all know. Through this, you'll see the final guidance and NDIs, new dietary ingredient. This is something the industry has been working on, FDA. Anything before in commerce before October 15th, 1994 has been grandfathered. What does that mean? That means that anything that was in commerce pre-Duché, they grandfathered as meaning considered being safe from a safety standpoint, not an efficacy standpoint. So the problem was for years was where's this list? What's going on? They finally kind of came up with a final list of these are the approved ingredients, and then they finalized the process. And if you make a product that wasn't in commerce before October 15, 1994, then you have to actually prove its safety. You got to do a safety study on like you would in almost pharmaceuticals to make sure that it's safe to consume. Because just because I take a certain compound, a phytochemical, and I attach a protein to it to make it more bioavailable, or I do something to it, how do you know that's actually safe for the human body, right? And this is a big issue, because even as simple as extracting out a botanical with a different solvent, like you take something extracted with ethanol compared to let's say, I don't know, mixture of water with ethanol and maybe a little methanol, you're going to have different compounds come out of a blueberry, because what we're dealing with, yes, they're foods, but they have thousands of phytochemicals, and everything is dose dependent, period. And so whenever you have different combinations of different phytochemicals, you have different side effects. I'd say blueberry, I was just giving an example, but this is a problem that there's only been a couple thousand submissions of the NDI requirements that's been in effect since Duché was released, with 100,000 supplements on the market, and we only started with 4,000 supplements in the market back in 1994. So there's been a logarithmic increase in the amount of brands and supplements that permeate the market, saturation almost. But people and all these new and exciting items out there, but have they been proving the safety on it? And I challenge people, ask the vendor, do you have any kind of safety studies on this new ingredient when it's new to the market? Because that could mean, if they haven't done that study, you got to be just very careful what you work with. You want to work with those reputable brands and companies that are investing the money to do that. I mentioned earlier about the whole issue in New York about the restrictions on weight loss and muscle building, supplement sales. That is something I think the intention and the thought process behind it is good, but the ability to actually implement that and track that, I think, is going to be the issue. And, we'll see where that goes, but it's in effect. Also, we know about the Chevron, how they overturned that conviction. And now, instead of the FDA, it's the court's going to have to make that decision on the regulatory aspect. And it can make changes now that we didn't necessarily see before. So this is time will tell how this changes this industry, but we will see a change, I think, in the future. I'm going to show you a chart in a second of how everything was restructured. So we'll come back to the Human Foods Program restructuring, and just how dietary supplements have been reclassified back to what we were before. And I also want to mention a big one, the nicotinamide mononucleotide. That was restricted by the court, saying that a drug company had already done a clinical study on it. So once any product that's been had a clinical study or investigated by a drug company, that's called, there's a drug pre-exclusion. And unfortunately, like I said, there's no list to do that. All of a sudden just pops up. So you can be doing all this R&D work and think there's a great compound. So it shows a lot of, you've done the NDI and all this work. And then all of a sudden you'll get a letter or something saying, hey, this has actually already been, studied and you can't sell this now. And so that's a big problem just in the process flow and how that works, and kind of it disincentivizes people to do innovation and do it the right way, go through the right process, because of the fear that you spend all this money and then it just gets pulled out from underneath you. But at least the NPA won a victory to kind of do an injunction against prohibiting the sale of NMN. So this is something it's a continuing involvement in this industry. And like I said, a lot of this, the law hasn't changed. The law was, written many years ago. It's the interpretation and how the enforcement of the law that continues to evolve. I wanted to show this is, we had the dietary supplements as a part. It used to begin, it was under chemical food safety. And you have to think about that, right? It used to be under chemical safety. We got into its own division, its own office. And now it's all the way back to that in the organizational structure under the FDA, back under chemical safety. And, it really kind of, I feel, highlights a little bit of how supplements are thought of. And, I think people need to look at it as more of a, definitely, I think it should be where it has its own office, and there needs to be more funding. We're going to see how this plays out, and the enforcement. There has been more audits, which is great, and maybe that is going to be. We've only used to see about 500 a year. I think they had over 1,000 this last year, so that is good. We're going in the right direction. Still way too small for this industry. And you got to remember, a lot of the audits when they go out there is re-audits, meaning they go see the people that had the issues before to follow up on them. So that, you're seeing the same ones. You're not looking at the additional manufacturers that keep entering the industry. But this is a change, kind of going back to how we were. Not saying I disagree with it. I think it's just we'll have to see. Time will tell how this affects the support of the supplement industry under now chemical safety, food safety. And I mentioned earlier about orthogonal testing. This is something that not many companies do. Like I said, people want the minimum, right? They said, oh, we do an ID test, we do one. We do a purity test, we do one. But there could be many purity tests that you need to look at, such as for any kind of testosterone product, you're going to want to look for, or weight loss product, you want to look for like weight loss drugs that might be added in there to give it a clinical effect, such as sibutramine, or did they put Viagra Cialis in there? Because they do. They literally add these things into supplements, and it's scary. And you see this. A lot of respect for now out there identifying and testing some of the products. And I've seen the FDA where they showed what stopped at the border coming into this country. But that's just a portion of what's really out there. And you just have to be mindful. You got to know who the manufacturer you're buying from. There's a lot of good marketing out there. There's a lot of brands that have great marketing teams. But at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, I put this in my body. Do I really know what I'm putting in there? Because the capsule that's green, that has pesticides, microplastics, name it, whatever it is, it's going to look exactly like the product that doesn't have it. And there's really no way from a patient, consumer, practitioner to look at that and say it is without make sure that the company you're working with is doing the right steps. They're taking all the steps. Ask them if it's a new ingredient they're doing. Are they actually... Did they take the process and do the NDI process? Because if not, and there's some other, and we'll talk about this later. There's other kind of red flags that you can look up on the bottle. But these are the things that consumers and patients and practitioners need to actually really start asking themselves. And it happens to everyone. I can tell my father, I've shown him presentations to 2017 and still somehow ended up with keto gummies in his, inbox. I have no idea how he got that. And I just, my father of all people, right? So everybody I think is susceptible to good marketing. And so it's changing people's minds and that. So, but we need to give them the education. And this is what I do, right? I wanted to highlight something that's really close to my heart. So as Ray said, I'm a microbiologist by training. And so aflatoxin, which I mentioned before, that really it's something unique to us. We do it in every botanical, every extract. Why? And this is just an example of last year or so, last couple of years, what we've seen, and we're seeing aflatoxin literally is a poisonous carcinogen. So it literally causes cancer, and other issues. And we're seeing it not just in, this is, and remember, mold is aflatoxin is produced by mold. Mold is ubiquitous in the environment. When you have any kind of moisture, it can grow in pretty, scarce resources and grow on anything. And as you can see from this, I'm just giving an example and I can show you the test results, but we're seeing it everything from extracts where they're concentrated from their original material, cayenne pepper, to the fact where cayenne pepper, our company contemplated not actually carrying cayenne pepper. Why? It was hard to find anything that actually was clean. Like it was literally lot after lot. This is not even all the lots that we tested. We couldn't find one. And we're like, do we just need to take it out? Because I have to ask myself, would you eat it? Right? When anything I put out there in the market, one of the things Dr. Marshall always taught me was like, ask yourself, would you eat it? And if you can't say yes, don't sell it. So, it's very simple. Like it's a really simple thought, right, behind it from a quality perspective. And I found out why. I was told by one of our Mexico vendors that has a chili plant, why does cayenne have so much possible aflatoxin? He explained to me that the traditional way to dry cayenne is to leave it on the bush and let it dry out many times. So, which means if it's high moisture, you'll have mold grow. And then all of a sudden you just grind it up and put it in a bottle. Kind of like, corn and other items in the husks. That's why they test it for aflatoxin. But as you can see, it doesn't discriminate. Anytime you have a high moisture environment, chase tree, and that's a huge level. That's 63 ppb. You're allowed 5. So I just wanted to give you kind of context by USP. There's 5 ppb. We're seeing logarithmic increases in poisonous carcinogens in product. And we've seen it in hydrangea root too, but this is just more recent. But at the end of the day, we're eating these items, and we reject this item. And what do you think happens? We're the only ones testing it. So somebody's eating this somewhere. Always know that. And everything I'm showing you, probably somebody's eating it somewhere. This is the actual test results. I like to share this so people know I'm not just being, try not to be a fear monger. I'm just really kind of educating and just, this is what I see and trying to share that knowledge because I think it's a big problem that it should be a standard testing across all botanicals to make sure, you can do that or establish processes that will prevent that. So, because I know it can be costly, but we are seeing these levels. And I'm showing you all this stuff because this drive to find natural health solutions, this is in the supply chain. People are trying to get this stuff, and it goes from having these toxins now to something that's more, it's economic adulteration, which means that people are doing this to spoof a test, and it could be different degrees, right? This one is a blueberry. Literally, we got in that they're putting cheaper pigment-rich botanicals in there to give it a bright orange hue. Color is important. Bright coloring can lead in the minds of consumers means a more ingredient. And so this has actually been true of the thought behind turmeric, which led to the lead poisoning issue across the world. And so just to give you, I'm going to divert a little bit from this, but just to give you an example, 2012, I got 3,000 fingers of turmeric in that tested at 1,316 micrograms of lead. It was painted with lead chromate. And, this is kind of earlier in my career when I got into this industry, and I was shocked by what I saw. Literally painted with lead chromate. Okay, move forward to like 2012 or 2019. I saw an article come out of Stanford University talking about lead painted turmeric coming out of Bangladesh, and they hadn't identified. They said in the actual research paper that they hadn't identified it coming from anywhere else. It's the first time they've seen it. Well, I saw it in 2012, right? So I knew that this was bigger than I even knew back then. I thought that was more scarce, but it was actually happening more often than I thought. Last year, Popular Mechanics came out with a whole article explaining what happened, and the government got involved because of lead poisonings around the world. And what happened is basically the brokers would not basically move, or the purchasing agents would not buy the turmeric from the farms unless it was a bright orange color. Now, natural substances vary based on season, the soil. It changes. It's natural, natural variation. But people won't buy it unless it's bright. It has a bright color to it because they think that means it's better for you, which not necessarily the case in all the cases like that. So that being said, what they did is they gave it a name, and it literally that name that they gave it, which it was not in necessarily the language of who was buying it. They basically said to put lead paint in, to paint it lead paint. So that's what they've been doing whenever they had a lot across, India, Bangladesh, and across probably the world, to make sure they have a bright colored ingredient, and literally poisoning people. And this is kind of another example, different. It's not lead paint. They're putting different botanicals in there. That's not necessarily the anthocyanin enriched material, but it's a coloring. Sometimes they do just use legal dyes. At least here they use botanicals of different colors. That's not anthocyanins, but it's cheaper material. They put it in there, gives it a bright blue, and they sell it at the premium price. That's a high quality blueberry. Not telling you that they spoofed you to think that, and they put more money in their pocket. So this is literally what this is. And like I said, it goes from one extreme to the other, but all there it's all economic adulteration. And the lead painting is more clandestine in my mind, but even though it's money driven. Something I want to show you here, the previous one is an HPTLC. This is a HPTLC. So you can, high performance thin layer chromatography, which is HPTLC, is a way to identify. And I said earlier, you have to do at least one test. For us as a company, we do HPTLC, we do microscopy, we'll do soluble ash as part of that suite of tests to identify, to make sure it's actually clean. And so that being said, this one test here this is actually from an HPTLC perspective, looks great, looks very, very scientific. I always say it looks very CSI looking, right? And if you have this on a report, people are oohed and awed by it. But it only shows one part of the picture. It doesn't show you other contamination like sand, maltodextrin, other things that might be added in there to weigh out the product. It does show you plant part, which is good, which is required. But it's only one part of the story, if you will. So when we took this material and we actually looked under the microscope, what we found was actually a crystalline material that was glass, like literally ground glass, that was probably, I don't think it was intentional. I think it fell into the batch whenever they were grinding it. And this is from a very large vendor that didn't want to admit fault. Kind of said, they tried to say that it was our fault. I don't know how we would have done this in multiple barrels across the lot. We're buying quite a bit of material at one time. And then there was also starch. And shouldn't have been typical to find in alfalfa. But if we just went by this one test, I would never have known. I've been none the wiser. And this is common. This is, people just do this one test. You need to do the suite of tests. And just like the microscopy part of the other one, the blueberry, it was fine. They didn't see these other necessarily the botanicals for the sample they pulled. It wasn't until we did the HPTLC that we saw that blueberry other pigment pop up. Here's another one I always show people. Like I think it's important to know this is a Siberian ginseng. We got a calcium oxalate, basically blended in at 5%. The left is what we got in. The right is a reference standard, what it should look like. It should be sparse and not with all the other stuff that's in between. And you got to ask yourself, would you eat this, right? I mean, at the end of the day, this is what we put in our bodies. And it takes, I have children of my own, and I'm not saying I'm giving them Siberian ginseng, but, just in general, people are eating this. They're giving it to their families. We're getting into pet health nutrition as well. And we give it to their other part of the family, their pets. If you can't say you would eat the product, don't sell it, period. And this is just an example. This one particular, they literally blended in this material evenly throughout the lot. It was the exact proportion in every barrel. This was about putting more money in their pocket. That's what this was about. This is a turmeric. This was a turmeric that we actually got in. Turmeric's a starch, right? It's a normal part of a root, starchy material. So they get pretty smart knowing some people are looking at it under the microscope doing HPTLC. HPTLC wouldn't, identify the starch. So that was the first issue. And even under the microscope, it was a starch, right? So it was colored. It was actually a dyed starch that was added in. The only reason that they were able to identify that was adulterated was the aggregation of the starch. And you have to partner with the best. So one of the things we've done is not only internally, we have an amazing, I always say it's our village of geniuses that we have on staff, but best minds of the industry. And we partner with James Neil Kababik at Flora Research Labs. Why? He was trained by the FDA 40 years ago to do microscopy, and he really knows the nuances. And he could see there's a little like aggregation here that pointed out that that's not natural. That doesn't happen in nature. So we were able to see this colored starch being put into the product, but somebody's eating that somewhere. And because we don't buy everything, and we're the only ones apparently complaining most of the time. I always show this because I need people to understand that this is a drawer full of clandestine adulteration. That means putting little drugs in the product. Our partners work with the DOJ and do a lot of the cases and are screening to find these, drugs and supplements that are usually for sexual health, weight loss, a lot of times sports nutrition now too. Cognitive is starting to happen, CBD, stuff like that. But literally, and this happened, in 2021, they found it. There's been multiple other testing, random pulls from either Amazon or they're finding this in the supply chain. This is actually just raw materials, not necessarily finished products they found in those raw materials. And so this is happening all the time. It's rampant, and it's a cat and mouse game. I always tell people because they're using the analogs for a lot of the drugs out there to give it a clinical effect. But as you know, analogs, a lot of times that's what the pharmaceutical companies threw away, that don't necessarily they have a clinical effect, but they have a side effect. And they're putting that in the supply chain because they cheaply made it somewhere, and either in, it could be even in the US, and they're putting that in the product to give it that clinical effect at a cheap price for people to think it's really coming from that botanical at lower dosages. So if you see a product that's, that you need much larger dosaging, because dosaging is very important. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. I just want to throw that out there. You got to be very careful, but it's rampant. It's happening all the time. You got to be very mindful of what you buy. So lessons from the past on this, adulteration is happening. You got to be diligent on the quality of the product that you're buying. Just because everybody says they have the best quality, that's kind of like, that's templated. And there's GMP signals. I've seen many presentations where people, these are from actual auditors. Well, they'll show you like, here's the 1,000 different GMP. Everybody says they're GMP. Technically, you don't need to have a GMP third-party certifications like we do. NSF, used to have USP. You don't have to have that. You just need to meet the regulations when the FDA comes. I say that's what separates the okay companies from the great companies. You need to have that. It's a third-party verification. And I think, what we do, actually, we go even beyond what's required there. And if you're working with a company, like let's say you're actually private labeling, you're doing a business with them. We do private label as well, where we can actually private label our products. You want to make sure that partner has, complete transparency, because a lot of times, many of the companies, they won't even let you look at how they produce the product, like as in a batch record. A batch record, think of it as like a recipe. It's just to make sure you're doing it consistently the same way every time. They won't allow you to even review it, even though it might be your label, which at the end of the day, you're called an own label distributor, which means it's your responsibility. You can't contract out your responsibility. It's literally been in warning letters. But you have to be there to see it. So for us, we, at the end of the day, that's your product with your label on it. So we give that. In fact, we took it a step further. I saw the issue of this industry where the transparency is a problem, and people are, especially private label customers, are given a product and said, good luck. Hey, thanks. Hope to see you again or reorder. And that's it. There's no other beyond partnership. Maybe they refer you to somebody to learn more. What we did is actually every partner of ours for private label, we decided to give them we took our quality system, identified the aspects of private label, person that does private label, what do they need to follow, right? We identified those SOPs and those documents. We made them into a template so they can turn it. And basically, I'm giving them, our quality system so they can implement it themselves. It's 25% of what needs to be done, right? You have to actually implement it, and you actually got to do it. But it's a step further than I think anybody I have ever heard sharing that. And I encourage the rest of the industry to do it, because this is how we raise the whole industry up from the bottom up. So we need to share this. And if they're your partner, I'm not in here for transactions. I'm here for long-term relationships. And then I mentioned third-party testing and certification. Amazon's forcing people to do that, which I think is good. There's a lot of bad players out there, a lot of charlatan, a lot of fly-by-night companies. And you just got to be careful. I mean, you got to go. I always say, if you can find a practitioner, try to go with them to make sure that you're getting high quality. You usually vet the product out themselves. If you're going to do it yourself, you got to make sure you're looking at you're questioning. Call them. Nobody wants to call anymore. It's gone out. E-commerce is big, right? Nobody's calling in these days. You lose that ability to ask some of those questions. You can do it by chat, I guess, but you're not going to be able to hear the responses from them. You need to ask the tough questions. Where are you sourcing this? How are you producing this? Is there a safety study, especially if you're doing something new? And then on the bottle itself, if you don't see a website or like a address on there, where it says it's distributed by or manufactured by, that's a huge red flag. Always know that if that's not there, it's required. That's usually the reason is they don't necessarily know it needs to be there, which is a problem because what else do they don't know about it? Two, or they're trying to hide. They don't want, because this is some kind of either counterfeit or it's adulterated or it's fake. So they don't want you to find them, and they're not going to put their address on there. So always be careful. And those are just kind of very high level warning signs. Once again, we as a company, even the best people that we've qualified, our vendors have problems, issues, and we've seen multiple, contamination this last year. We continue to see it, and we expect it, honestly. And finding the supply chain is something we're focusing on this year, because I think that is where it all begins. Garbage in is garbage out, right? You have to make sure the material in, there's part of it, your processes, how you make the product is very important too, because like I said, how you extract out, what you do, what you add in there afterwards can affect the health of somebody, affect the quality. But at the core of it, if the material is adulterated coming into it, it's already done. We're done. So the last thing is I'm really kind of advocating the self-regulation of this industry. I think we continue. I showed you the growth, right? I show you the demand, and it's not going away. I think it may even accelerate. Who knows? There seems to be a steady growth of around 6% a year. We need the big companies, the companies that need to really kind of get out there and we gotta lead by example, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to educate everybody on what's out there, what we're seeing, so you can ask the right question. Because at the end of the day, you're buying this you expect it, whatever's in that product, it says what it is, nothing else, right? That it's not going to kill you, right? If you take it, because there has been deaths for products, either from ignorance or from intentional, adulteration. Both of those are not okay or right, or, but that's what happens. And the third thing is, if people are making claims that this, this helps with blood sugar, that there's some science behind it, right? And that's what you're expecting, because, like I said, there's a lot of good marketing out there. You just got to be careful. So we have to have the companies self-regulate, and the larger ones that really set an example for the rest of this industry. That's all I got.
Well, thank you, Nick. So thank you for all that very precious information. That's usually my favorite thing to share to people.
Yeah.
And now I invite all the rest of my co-hosts, and if they have any questions, especially for themselves or whatever the audience might have the same questions.
First of all, first question: can we organize these products as well for Europe, or can we order them in Europe and Germany?
Yeah, we are working on, like I said, every country has its own set of regulations. The European Union tends to be pretty harmonized. We are going to be in the UK not too much longer, probably this coming year. We are working on a program also for practitioners to do telehealth through international and using the personal exemption space to get there. But yes, you can, certain countries will be able to do that. And we're going to have a lot more awareness, especially through the practitioner channel for patients abroad to get that. So, and we'll have connections for practitioners in the US to help support the rest of the world. I think we need to share this high quality material with everyone else to let them know, like, you can feel the effects whenever you have a high quality material. But to answer your question, in some countries, yes, but not all.
Okay.
Hey, Nick, as far as, one of the things they want to look at when a customer, the average person out there looking, what he should look for, because most people don't have the knowledge. There's a million companies, like I said, there's a lot in advertising is a big thing. Dr. Marshall was big about the excipients, right? Magsterate was one of the big ones, so when you pick up a supplement, if you see magsterate in there, now some people say it doesn't really affect you much, but it's always in the quantity. If you start taking supplements that have flow agents into them, they can't be good for you, right? So, you know, you want to pick up a supplement that doesn't have a lot of what they call incipients or additives outside the base product that you're buying, right?
Yeah. So we lost a great man, as you know, George, somebody that was way ahead of his time. And the people that know Dr. Marshall, you know, he was producing clean label product before it was even on the radar for, like, in this industry. Clean label really came onto being more talked about or even requested around 6-7 years ago. 30 years ago, Dr. Marshall was called a purinoid because he wanted to produce product without, you know, traditional excipients like max stearate, talc, whatever, silicon dioxide, stuff like that are used to help with efficiency, drying. They're very functional aspects of it for more efficiency for the production side. But, you know, or the appearance of the product or how the product works. What we've done is not only leverage technology from the type of encapsulators that we use, but also finding, you know, items that mimic the characteristics of these. I'm using, you know, MCT oil as a lubricant. I'm using, you know, different rice concentrates for drying agents. I'm using, you know, whole food nutrition to substitute and give the same effect. Is it as efficient as one of the other items? Absolutely not. Period. That's just how it is. But we accept whatever loss there is. It used to be much more loss when I first got here. We've worked over it on the years and become, you know, this is our bread and butter, creating these non-traditional excipient formulas. And, you know, we're using binders such as rice bran and, you know, all the health aspects of that instead of, you know, something else, another binder. So we really taken that different step, and he was a trailblazer. He was doing this before even people were talking about it. And, you know, I think people really need to understand, when you take a product, do you really want that in there? Is that, you know, everything is dose dependent, and we're constantly bombarded every day, as you know, from toxins, from the environment, from forever chemicals. Do you want to just add another one in there into the mix? Do you want to keep adding to your bucket till it overflows? I don't think you do.
Yeah, would you say that what incipients should people look for that, or, you know, they don't want in there? Like they go to vegetable stearate now. So a lot of manufacturers started using.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you what we don't do. So we don't add any kind of, you know, vegetable stearate, magnesium stearate. You know, there's been studies that show in all carbon-based compounds will turn into formaldehyde with enough pressure and degradation over time. But they show a lot of these excipients will hold this formaldehyde in there, especially magnesium stearate. We actually don't do tablets personally ourselves, so we don't apply that pressure, which has a decomposition aspect to it. We only do capsules with free-flowing capsules so we don't have that degradation and these other compounds produced during the process that people just, you know, don't really realize that's happening. Not to say tablets are bad, but just know that that's part of the process. And once again, you're bombarded all the time with these other items that are not necessarily beneficial or lack nutrients. Do we want to continue to add in there? And we say no. Our philosophy is absolutely not. We rather not, and we want to give you health substances rather than these other compounds that could, or materials that would not either add to the nutritional value, and really it's just for the aspects of efficiency.
Yeah, you might want to talk about a little bit about the nanos that you produce, because that's I find that is one of the best products, because you don't have to worry about the, you know, the flow agents, you don't have to worry about the tablets, but, you know, they actually, the way they enter your body and the, you know, the fermentation process you go through. So I think that's one, and I don't see a lot of other manufacturers offering them, right? You know, I don't know what it takes to produce them, and that, you know, be interested in, you know, your process that, you know, other people might be interested in too.
Yeah. So something very unique to us, you know, we do, for our process, we do capsules, we do powders, and then we do liquids. In the liquid process, we actually ferment ourselves. Something Dr. Marshall, another, you know, way ahead of his time, a trailblazer, he was doing fermentation and talking about gut health and bioavailability before that was even a thing. And we've been doing our top product, for example, is our Max B. And this is a B vitamin complex multiple vitamins that literally we ferment with a probiotic strain. The probiotic strain produces the bacteriocin and other postbiotics that when you take it with the B vitamins helps with bioavailability, but also helps with producing other end-chain forms. For example, the adenosylcobalamin, once I ferment it, becomes hydroxycobalamin. So in that formula, I have methyl, adenylyl, and hydroxyl, which is all the active forms. And the longest, stabilized form, which is hydroxycobalamin, which can interchange into the other two. To give you an example, it also has the family of B2, family of B6. Overall, we only identify 13 forms, but there's actually a lot more. It's one of the best B vitamins you possibly can be out there that you could take. It's in liquid form, so you don't have to worry about, these other flow agents. But even with liquids, you got to worry about them adding stuff for mouth feel and everything. Which is important. Patient compliance, consumer taking a product every day. If it doesn't, if there's some kind of sensory issue or tastes really bad, like it's hard for people to do it. But this is a great product, and these are pure. People, I think, are understanding the need for purity and to get clean material, and that's what our nanos are. And like the people know about postbiotic, they're starting to understand about postbiotic. People know probiotic. Postbiotics are produced by the probiotic. For that clinical effect. And this is everything from acids like lactic acid or different organic acids to bacteriocins to enzymes and everything else. So very unique product on the market. We also ferment things like, resveratrol. We'll ferment different items for practitioner use for gallbladder and liver. In fact, something my mother takes for liver health. So this is a very unique product. Nobody really has this for what we do. There's other fermented capsules on the market and other things, but this is something that you don't have to worry about those other flow agents when it's liquid form.
Yeah. Have you looked at it on the bees, the B17s, B15s? That there's some talk about the benefits of that, and I wonder if your company was looking at doing anything with that.
And I'm looking at the safety. Like I mentioned earlier, it's always very important for me to make sure safeties have been done, even those might be in natural materials. Just, parts, a lot of things come from natural materials, but also, or oleander is natural, but also has poison in it. Digitalis lanata, which was actually a mix-up they did with plantain leaf back in the late, I think, 90s or early 90s before the GMPs. And it was substituted out, but it has a heart arrhythmia drug in it. So it hurt people. So just because it's natural doesn't mean it's safe, but there's been interesting studies. I think there's more safety there. And we have been looking at that from a health span and longevity aspect too. And there's some very interesting research, but really diving deep into that as we continue to expand the line. We want to make sure we are very robust. I can tell you, and from everything I showed you some more extreme items. And, we also look at, we'll do investigations for a couple months on certain items when we're identifying things that even the vendor's not identifying themselves when it's like a trademark ingredient. So we spend a lot of time. And Dr. Marshall always said, we're a locomotive. We don't speed up. We don't go really fast initially, and we don't stop really fast. We have to go slow because it takes time to go through this process. And I agree. We want to make sure that whatever I give you is the purest item, the safety is there. And that, I also look at personally that I'm going to probably give it to my family. And I want to make sure it is the cleanest item I can find on the market. So, and that's another thing. Sourcing becomes an issue too, because especially with trendy items that people are starting to look at, there's a lot of people out there to make a quick buck.
Are you still doing the energy testing on your batches when they come in?
Absolutely. So we qualify QRA, which is quantum reflex analysis, which is a muscle technique, a kinesiology technique that Dr. Marshall and Dr. Forbes invented, if you will, variation of different muscle testing techniques that we actually qualify all our vendors for. This is how we do it. So, and we do have failures, things that don't necessarily test with the body. Even our formulas are formulated with that mindset and tested to ensure it tests on and that it helps you. People wonder sometimes, they're like, why is your vitamin C helping my toe issue? And I'm like, it's a nutrient that helps with everything. I can't tell you exactly why that's helping, but high clean, highly bioavailable, we try to keep it as minimally processed as possible. Sometimes we need a extract that's high dosaging, so that way you have the clinical dosage there, but we always use supportive factors to help with the energetics of that product. So absolutely, we actually do it beyond that. So we do it throughout the formula and the process and the R&D aspect.
Yeah. I won't take all the time from other guests, but I had another question more on the political side. So in the past, there was a lot of attacks by a number of senators, even on the not the pharmaceutical, but the nutritional based products in the industry. Are you seeing that happen more? I understand, like in Canada, there's been a big push to really go against the nutraceuticals, supplement products. Do you see that happening in the U.S.? Or do you see a change maybe with this last administration that might swing back the other way, where this might look heavily more on natural products for overall health, right, rather than pharmaceutical products?
I'm always hopeful with every administration, and especially hopefully the new one with who I see they're nominating, that there could be a change of focus, right? And they're not necessarily. I think I'm not against, my wife's a nurse practitioner, and there's a need for sometimes acute need, and you need some kind of Western medicine, but at the same time, not putting us under food chemical safety and really kind of highlighting the importance of preventative, high purity botanicals and whole food nutrition. I think I'm hoping there's going to be a shift with this administration, as I do every 4 years, that there going to be a better focus. Because I think, why not? You need all the tools in your toolkit for practitioners to have for their patients and consumers to have choices. Sometimes they can't afford the pharmaceutical maybe they need, but there's an alternate botanical they can use. And we need to highlight that, and also infusion of money into the industry for more research too. A lot of this is funded by the companies themselves, but if the government could get involved and help support, you're going to see an acceleration in innovation probably you've never seen before, and I'm hoping that happens.
Once that happens, then you really need good quality.
We're going to take another step. Yes. We're all about innovating quality, and once again, every time I innovate quality, it's opening Pandora's box. I'm all about it. I'm like I said, I'm with my flag. I'll run out there with it. But we need to be mindful of the limitations of what even the processing capabilities of what's out there from the technology. We need more innovation.
Yeah. Do you see like other influences from outside the U.S., from Europe and so forth, influencing what we're doing here, or vice versa? In other countries? You go to a lot of committee meetings, I'm sure, where you get a big broad spectrum of who's attending that.
Yeah.
What's the general feeling there of what's going on worldwide?
I think from an international level, the Netherlands tends to be a driver of innovation, and what they want to see across Europe and everything else. And I always see them pushing the envelope of what to be expected or what's out there from an innovation standpoint. But from the influencers across the world, there's a lot of. I'm not going to get political, but I'm just saying there's a lot of turmoil. I'll call that right now happening, and there's a fear on supply chain, right? We have to source from around the world, period. And we do more testing in certain areas. Like I said, I've come from India. I'm very careful, and I test for illegal dyes and all kinds of things because of my experience and what I know. I think that there is a drive. People are starting to become more aware, especially in Europe. And I see the differences in the food supply and the manufacturing, at least from the food supply. I'm hoping for the supplements that's translated as well. And then that influence comes over here. I'm hoping that the regulation doesn't become, though, so restrictive, like was mentioned earlier, that they start reducing dosages to the point where there's no efficacious dose that's actually based on science, saying this is what we need, because it's almost like you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot. There's a balance that we have to hear, and there's a lot of voices, honestly. I've gone to committees. Even I remember when DNA testing was coming out, even though DNA testing has been done, botanicals or just in general for a long time. But when it really came to this industry, and I was one of the individuals that really kind of took it on as a company, it actually led to a recall for us. We identified something in our product that we didn't see before. It actually helped us see the wheat allergen that we couldn't identify any other way. And it was such a small amount, but it was, we don't want anybody to get hurt. We had to do recall. And it could lead to those things. And there's a fear for that. But, we refined our process, we improved, and I think we need to embrace those technologies. And, like I said, the health influencers and the political figures out there, I think there's more awareness happening. And I think there's a change of mindset starting to happen across the world, period. It's the deep pockets sometimes of certain lobbyists that kind of help stops the progression, the progress in the future.
Yeah, I see. One of the things you see, like a lot of the people taking their own responsibility for health. So a lot of the companies like yourselves are coming out with home test kits that you can do a lot of your home testing to get away from having to go to a doctor and get tested. And then, based on those results, you take responsibility for your own health. Working with companies like yourself or better companies that have natural products that can actually help our overall health, right? So those kits, the ability to do that at home is going to be, I think you'll see a big growth in that industry, in the future. Yeah.
And like, I'm always an advocate. We give you solutions. People are going to try to biohack themselves all the day. I even showed you, there's even now people identifying this in the big, reports for the industry. Biohacking is a thing. But I always want to mention that you can biohack yourself all day, but take those results and work with a practitioner to experience the level of health you never experienced before. Because they're going to show you insights and protocols that are personalized to you. You're going to spend a lot more money, tending to be, because you're going to try to figure it out. You have no idea how many times I've heard from my wife, who's a nurse practitioner, about these individuals that try to figure it out themselves and spend $40,000 to try to figure it out themselves. So have the right partner, find that right partner from a supplement company, and then they can connect you to, that other practitioner. And if you want to do that, work with the right company that can guide you in the right place. You need that guidance. Your health everybody's different, like Grace mentioned earlier, and your unique needs is not templated. That doesn't exist. And that's why personalized nutrition, I think, is growing so big. Just personalized everything, because people realize there is not a one-stop protocol. Get the help you need. It's going to change the industry by having the options there, but we also need to have the practitioners and everybody else come together to help raise the level of health of this whole industry.
Yeah, I agree.
Hartmut, Drago?
Yeah, I have a question concerning let's say the problem what we have, for example, today is 5G and 6G, and this is we call it, some people call it the radar illness, because it's the same illness what people had when they were soldiers and worked directly to radars and radars, and now we have, let's say, many people have this. And I was informed that, for example, NADH can have specific support in this kind of treatment. Can you tell anything about NADH and what kind of...
So we're looking at more of a mitochondrial health aspects and producing more NADH in the body, right? We actually have a product literally that's NADH on our line that can help with that. Using N-acetylcysteine and using like glycine from like a collagen, more natural, using the starting components. So we have a fish collagen. I always say if you go with the starting components, unless you have some kind of genetic mutation where you can't process that, which would be a problem, because then you probably couldn't process other things. You always want to start with, the beginning ingredients of whatever it is. And, I'm looking at NADH, nicotinamide, riboside, NMN, using different ingredients to increase glutathione as well as NADH. I think the detox plus the NADH pathway, both of them. So a niacin produced item. So we have niacinamide, which is a non-flushing niacin product. using also the N-acetylcysteine with the glycine. So I always say do them both together to help with the detox pathways and also the energetic mitochondrial pathways. And that's my protocol that I always tell people to use to help with detoxification and also protection, as you mentioned, from the 5G, 6G effects. So we have, and the great thing is for us, we have about 150 different products that can be used in different ways. So we have everything from base collagen products like that and just ginger straight. I sell ginger. Why? Because of everything I just showed you. People need to find pure materials. So we started doing individual ingredients to more complex mixtures for brain health, which actually has like our cognotropic, which has more of has a neurofactor. It's a multi-component formula. So, NADH as an aspect for mitochondrial health and just energy. Now, always remember, if you don't start with the beginning materials and you start with like just NADH, getting that into muscle has been proven to be very difficult. So you get blood increases, but not necessarily within the actual cells or the muscles. So you always want to start with starting material to do that pathway.
Yeah, the point is because of this kind of illnesses or the body ages much faster.
Correct.
So the telomeres are damaged.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is it possible, for example, are there studies that the telomeres can be repaired or that this damage can be stopped? Do you know anything about that?
I've heard from lifestyle changes, from telomere. They've literally shown just recently in terms of going more plant-based, and you may have seen this. They've been showing studies between. Not to say I'm indifferent in terms of the diets necessarily, but they do show plant-based diets can actually extend life, and this is all part of the biohacking community about longevity. There's health span too. You can have long telomeres, but you're also sick all the time. That's called health span, right? Or you want to make sure you're healthy, because it doesn't matter if I'm sick for 20 years, but I'm living. Who cares, right? So there is, talking about the sirtuins and extending that, but diet and lifestyle changes can have profound effects on the actual telomere link. They know that now. Looking at resveratrol, right? Using nicotinamide riboside to do that. All these things can have effects. Now, as there are good clinical evidence showing that, there's not been a lot of great clinical evidence. It's profound. It's big claims such as telomere lengthening needs great evidence, I always say. And so, I think they're all supportive agents. First thing you always should do is start with lifestyle. And I think, going to more plant-based, try vegan. I'm not saying even, I always say everything's in moderation, right? Everything's dose dependent. Every poison is dose dependent. B12 can be poisonous if you take too much of it. You got to take a lot, but it's dose dependent. So can you have some meat throughout the process? Absolutely, if you needed to, if you had to, as my personal beliefs. But what they've shown is plant-based diets and lifestyles have shown to increase telomere length, period.
Okay. And another question is, I think you have 150 supplements. But if I'm correctly informed, you don't distribute OPC. Is there any reason for this?
OPC, it may be coming into the future. I maybe do something of that nature. As I came into this position, we are expanding quite a bit. So I'm not saying in the future I won't do that. But right at this moment we don't. And it's just something we haven't done at this point.
And for example, if you have so many supplements, so you can also recommend people, let's say practitioners, who can really make good consultation so that the people can get back on the healthy track.
Absolutely. So we have a whole network of practitioners that literally you can call in, and if you have questions, We can send them to you, hopefully locally. If not, we can connect you. The great thing is we're in the age of telehealth. 2020 really accelerated that for the world. And it's my mission to connect some of the brilliant minds here in the US to everybody in the world, and then vice versa as well, by creating a platform that we can possibly do that with. So that's coming soon. But yes, we have a whole network of practitioners that you can work with that can help support you. And then we can ship you either locally or internationally. International within the next couple months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that there are several distributors already ship your products in the whole world. But
yeah, we have a lot coming. There's going to be a massive expansion to really share, honestly, what we have, because we really do change people's lives. My biggest, when I'm being a locomotive, as I said earlier, not trying to go too fast, even though I'm going pretty fast, is the supply chain. And my biggest concern, especially honestly with the new administration coming in, cost, as you saw, the financial stress, it's a balance, right? Nobody's going to pay $180 for CoQ10 ever, and we got to find ways to make sure, but I'm not going to compromise and sell something or give something to somebody unless it's pure, which is, it's more cost to it. So we are trying to find innovative ways. Even we're trying to find a way to solve the problem of aflatoxin by a special cleaning method that we could do with whole botanicals before it's processed. So I'm trying to innovate quality while also keeping the cost down, which is, as you know, I'm pushing both ways, and it's very hard to stay within that price elasticity that the market will buy. And so good things are. I'm very excited for 2025.
Oh, that sounds brilliant. Thank you so much for being here. It was a great pleasure. Thank you.
Great to meet you.
Drago.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the same thing as Hartmut, to thank Nick for everything. I was about to ask about the federal institutions and how they are essentially trying to suffocate any sort of independent thought or project. So, but you already explained to us with George what that is all about and the new administration. So, I have no other questions, but I just want to thank you for this fascinating masterclass, essentially.
For me, it's a complete new. The good thing is, if, for example, in the future, if you have AI, and AI knows the complete ingredients of the product, and they can make a protocol by asking question, AI will give you the exact doses and explain what you need.
And leveraging AI, we're trying to do to enable the practitioner and consumers to have a knowledge base that's been validated to help them make better choices, right? To figure out what's happening out there. So there's an opportunity. There's a lot of fear, but I think there's starting to be acceptance, and it's accelerating so fast. And we got to learn, how do we use this technology to support everybody out there, because everybody's at a different part in their journey of health, period. It may be able to bridge that in a way that we couldn't do as humans. And I'm going to leave it there because I don't want to let all the secrets out. But there's a lot of excitement in my mind in this facility of what we could do together. So, and using technology as an augment of health solutions out there.
And Nick, one of your favorite products we don't leave home without is your HCl, digestive enzymes, and your meticulously. Don't leave home. Dr. Marshall would always say that, don't eat any cooked food unless you have that.
Gut health. I'm going to tell you. I'm a microbiologist, and I'm very big about symbiotic and gut health. But digestion, at the end, the core essence, if you could take any nutrient you want, you can't digest it, you can't break it down. I'm sorry, you're not gonna absorb it, right? You can try to get a better form and all that, and the meticulously is one of my favorite products. And why? Because it's been clinically studied in San Antonio and in Kenya. To bind to aflatoxin, there tends to be a lot of legume and grains that are eaten in those regions, and literally helping the children and the epigenetic effect for children, but also the prevalence of liver cancer that's caused by aflatoxin. eat every meal with meticulously. I'm telling you guys, it will bind to it. Actually binds to endotoxin. I've shown in the lab by 80% reduction. It's also binds to various. It's very selective, so it won't bind to your drugs or vitamins. It's very selective on the aflatoxins, endotoxins aspect of it. So you just take 2 capsules. Ideally, you want to open up in water, but people don't want to drink, a clay sometimes. So we put in capsules. Plus dosaging, very important. I think people really forget about accuracy is very important a lot of times in clinical effects, right? You want to make sure you get the right amount in your body. Sometimes it can be toxic if you don't get too much, or doesn't do anything if you get too little. So I'm all about dosaging, and it's one of the reasons we do keep capsules and keep that, because you can always open that capsule and turn it into a powder. So, but yeah, totally.
Great.
Have you ever made a research with respect nutritions and pulse electromagnetic field systems? Because with the pulse electromagnetic field system, you bring the electric fields in the body, and if someone has taken the supplements go straight to the cell, and because more ingredients of the supplements comes to the cell has to increase, the mitochondria has to increase its power.
Yeah.
And so it activates much more, and so the situation is, so the effect must be stronger, not much stronger, but I don't know, but stronger than without pulse electromagnetic field system.
Yeah, I think we're just, the aspects of using different energies and how to apply it to the body, and you're talking about more about the microcurrent aspects of increasing bioavailability that way. I'm all about technologies and using them to augment different aspects. We got to be careful with energies, though, because not all energies, I think there's no such thing to me as bad energy, other than it's probably not in the right form for you. And something Dr. Forbes, our founder, really advocates with her cure and modifications of energy, using different geometric designs and techniques. But some of our practitioners do practice what you just said. And we're actually going to be at FSM this year, where they do microcurrent. That being said, I'm always open, as we want to be more of a health hub to give all the different tools for the practitioners to use in their toolkit. Because this wouldn't be available to the public, because you got to be very careful with this stuff. But giving options, and maybe with who knows, maybe with AI in the future, in a few years, there will be, every practitioner will have their own AI robot that goes out there and works for them and it does everything. But that being said, having technologies like that as opportunities for practitioners to use to help patients, to increase and give them that bioavailability, or help them from PMF mats to red light to everything, as the biohacking community we're open to, and would love to explore further. And things are continuously being innovative. I just came from May4M, and very exciting technologies are out there. We just got to be careful of how that, just because one energy comes in and you feel great doesn't mean the lasting effects of that's going to be great. I just want to say that.
I agree 100%. Yes.
Yeah.
That's well, I'm working in this field, and I'm representative of a PMF system, which was developed by the University of Linz in Austria and by the University of Budapest in Hungary.
Yeah.
And this is the reason why I have a little bit knowledge about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Definitely. We got to talk more in the future.
Yes.
Love it.
Yeah, even on the energy side, not everything's created equal, so you have to be careful.
Yes, that's correct.
And PRL is one of the companies that actually, I said, so I don't know too many supplement companies that combine the aspects of ASTU energy, overall energy, your body, your building, your house, architecture, your being, and supplement side. They have a way to integrate that together, which is it's about everything connected together. It's not one magic bullet, many different things.
I could listen to Dr. Klinghardt the last time, or someone else. He said, someone said so brilliant. No one at the moment, in the universities learn how to treat diseases, because we are in a stage where the old diseases are gone and the new diseases we don't know to cure. Yeah.
Very true.
Very
Very
interesting.
true.
There's no money in cures.
Yes.
That's the problem, and we need to get past that as a society. Period. Like, it's starting to happen, and people are waking up. You can literally see it. You're hearing from people, people years ago that wouldn't even give you maybe the time of day and blow it off, and then they have their own experience and then very open to it. Right? Things have to happen. Tragedies have to happen. World events have to happen. And I'll leave that up there. But people are waking up.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's an exciting time because
Absolutely.
I have also contacts to the east and also energetic stuff, and the people you can the cells. Let's say it this way: as long as the cells knew how they were in the past, they can renew and they can get again how they were in the past.
Yeah.
Well, I like that. I like that. Yeah. And just going back again to how we were created in the image of the source, right? So, anyway, let me just make sure I'll mute. We'll have good audio. So, thank you very much. I'm very happy with this episode because it's another way that we could really help people. We pivoted from our usual geopolitical situations, but when you're healthy, you could do a lot more in many aspects of our lives. So, Nick, where do you want them to invite them on how to get in touch with you?
Yes. So you can reach out to us at, you can visit us at prlabs.com, and the website, it's going to be www.prlabs.com. But you can also email at info@prlabs.com. And I'm going to do something crazy to the audience. I'm going to give you my email, and it's going to be nickl@prlabs.com, because I want to hear from you. I love this. I love helping people. I do what I do because I have a passion for this. I'm blessed and privileged to have Dr. Marshall give me the knowledge I have today to help me take this to another level and embody. And I want to help everybody on a personal level, whatever way I can. And that's either even referring you to another practitioner. That's going to be nickel@prlabs.com, LABS. And so, or info@prlabs.com. So please reach out. I'm here as a resource. And even if we don't have the material solution, I'll give you the best option that I know. I'm not, it's not like if I don't have it, I'm just not going to tell you there's nothing out there. I'm here to give you solutions. That's what I do.
Is that correct? nicklabs@prl.com?
It's actually Nick L at
L.
prlabs.com.
ABS. Nick L@PRL. Is it
abs.com.
abs.com? I should know this by heart. Forgive me. Well,
Same thing with the info at PR. It's at prlabs, LABS.
So at info@prlabs.com.
prlabs.com.
Well, you know how it is. Even your phone number, sometimes you forget because you're always connecting with them.
Absolutely.
So yes, there it is. And
Perfect.
you have one lucky for all our audience. Lucky you, because George and I are both practitioners. So here it is. You could email me also at graceasagra@ymail.com. And my code here is especially, I created this code so you could have a 15% discount. It's just a little long. But feel free to email me, graceasagra@ymail. And yes, okay. And you can connect with me if you have other questions. And George also, we work together. And so when you see me, you see two people, two practitioners together. And it's very exciting. In the next time, maybe we'll talk more about the Vastu and other things, because, we haven't even really touched, we have just touched the tip of the power of the PRL's, company as a whole. And yes, this I like to have this tribute to Dr. Robert Marshall, who is really a trailblazer. And thank you, Dr. Forbes, Linda Forbes, and she's the energy master who's always guided us until now, and she is the co-founder. of that. And okay, and thank you everyone, and for Hartmut and for Drago, and because even if like Drago just maybe speak less this time, but his presence, I like that energy that he brings in when he comes. Okay, so again, so that 15% discount, go and look for it. And that's it. And just remember, if this resonates to you, whether you're a practitioner or not, feel free, connect. That's all. And as we said, the power of what we say, as Roy, too bad Roy isn't here. Roy, this is one of my secrets. So Roy always asks me, what makes me look this good and radiant? This is my secret. Okay? So take care.
Thank
All
you.
right. Anything more? That's it. Okay. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.